To say that the American South was devastated after the Civil War would be a bit of an understatement. Despite the American Civil War being one of the few wars that most people, including myself, would consider morally and ethically justified, it may shock people to learn that the Civil War was in fact a war. And here's a little known fun fact. In war, people die. And in the case of the Civil War, that last fact applied to quite a lot of people. This massive loss of the South's working population, combined with a rather poor attempt at Reconstruction, created a post-war South mired in decades of poverty and stagnation, some of the effects of which you can actually still see today. Now, Louisiana, being one of the first states to be captured by Union forces through New Orleans, suffered the worst of this devastation, creating an environment where the poorest, who could never really afford slaves, suffered the most, whilst ironically the wealthy plantation owners were able to deal with the situation the best, and transfer their wealth into political clout. Essentially, in Louisiana, if you were poor, you stayed poor, and if you were rich, you stayed rich. There was no in between. And frankly, you were far more likely to be poor. This harsh environment that one of America's most controversial and interesting political figures arose. A man who's reviled by the defenders of democracy as much as he is adored by the poor. Today, we're going to look at the life and times of America's kingfish, Huey Long. And by we, I mean we.
Long was born in an impoverished town in northern Louisiana. However, he often exaggerated just how bad his situation was to maintain his populist appeal. Very intelligent from an early age, he earned a full scholarship to Louisiana State University, but couldn't afford to go because his family wasn't able to buy him textbooks. He became a salesman and never really did well in college, failing classes and telling his teacher he never paid attention. After finally taking the necessary classes at Tulane, Long receives his license to practice. Predominantly serving poorer clients, Long was eventually elected for the Louisiana Railroad Commission, eventually becoming chairman of the renamed Public Service Commission. He was then involved with a telephone company about unfair rate hikes, winning a case before the Supreme Court and getting Taft to call him the most brilliant lawyer who ever practiced. In return, Long called Taft the biggest president to ever serve. In the Louisiana gubernatorial election of 1920, Long would strongly support John Parker, which potentially led to Parker's victories in northern Louisiana, but would almost immediately start beef once Parker got elected for allowing oil companies to increase taxes.
I'm back again. So Huey Long, after realizing that
anything can be bought and sold for the right oil,
Huey Long decided that, maybe he should be governor of Louisiana, because, he was the only politician in the United States that really wasn't a corporate tool. As a result, he chose to run in the 1924 Louisiana gubernatorial, or governor's election, which he proceeded to lose. However, he did manage to secure 31% of the vote, landing him in third place. He did this by appealing to the rural poor, who felt abandoned by the planter class who consistently enriched themselves, promising things like low taxes and free textbooks for impoverished children. What may have doomed his run, however, was his inability to give a proper opinion as to whether he was pro or anti-KKK. However, Long ran again for the second time in 1927, and this time, he learned from his mistakes. In the 1927 election, Long used innovative campaigning, like sound trucks and radio ads, forgive the misspelling, plus government mismanagement during floods gave him crucial Cajun support, which he lacked during the previous election, and he also developed, in my opinion, what is the best election slogan of all time. Every man a king, but no man wears a crown. In fact, it was so good that he actually made a theme song out of it.
And every neighbor a friend, with every man a king. What do you think about that?
I think it's fine.
I think it's fine too, Huey. The 1920s, truly a time of culture. Besides that banger hit single, what contributed most to Long's victory was his ability to address the problems of the now. The Southern planters who had traditionally held power consistently used race baiting and the glories of the old Confederate past to essentially dupe voters into consistently voting for them. In Long, however, they found someone who was willing to address their problems now. And in the end, that's what really won him the election, the people. Huey Long would never forget how the people, particularly the poorest, helped him become the youngest governor of Louisiana. And in exchange, he would make sure that these people got their fair shake, whether against the northern banker or the southern planter, no matter the cost. Hey guys, Shobit here. So, there's a bit of an unspoken rule on the Shobit Mukherjee channel that a video has to be less than 5 minutes long, and frankly, if I did all of Huey Long in one video, it would be well over 5 minutes, so I decided to make the Huey Long videos a two-parter. Part 2 will probably be coming out in 2 to 4 days, depending on how lazy I'm feeling. But in the meantime, you can check out my other videos and subscribe so you can get notified when part 2 comes out. I hope you enjoyed this brief introduction to the life and tribulations of Huey Long.